The CERRADO of Brazil occupies the center of the national territory and maintains one of the largest concentrations of terrestrial biodiversity on the planet. It functions as a link between the great biomes of South America. Here, nutrient-poor soil, a rigorous climate, and strict seasonality shape behaviors, cycles, and survival strategies. It is an environment where every adaptation is the direct result of environmental pressure, and every organism reacts to conditions that do not allow errors. This is an ecosystem where survival is decided day by day, sustaining one of the most complex natural balances in South America. Welcome to the wild Cerrado, where life endures in the most biodiverse savanna in the world. Every like and subscribe you give is a huge motivation for us to keep creating better and higher quality content. Don't hesitate to leave a comment below. We'd love to know that this video has connected us. In your opinion, which animal is truly the ultimate apex predator in nature? Without keeping you waiting any longer, let's get started. The Cerrado operates under a severe and clearly differentiated seasonal tropical climate regime. The year is divided into two opposing phases. A prolonged rainy season, when water floods the surface layers of the soil and vegetation explodes in rapid growth. And a dry season lasting several months when humidity drops drastically, surface water resources disappear, and survival pressure increases significantly. Nighttime temperatures can drop close to 12 degrees Celsius, while during the day the ground surface can exceed 40 degrees Celsius, creating a large thermal range that directly impacts the physiology of plants and animals. This very severity has created one of the most diverse vegetation systems among tropical savannas. The Cerrado is not a homogeneous landscape. It is a complex ecological mosaic, ranging from completely open fields where only low grasses and bare soil predominate, interspersed with savannas with dispersed shrubs, the typical Cerrado with low-trunk trees, denser cerradoise forests, and the fringe of gallery forests that border permanent watercourses. This stratification creates countless microenvironments, each imposing different living conditions. The Cerrado vegetation bears clear marks of adaptation to drought, nutrient poverty, and natural fires. Trees often have twisted trunks, thick bark, and small leaves, which reduces water loss and protects the living tissue from high temperatures. Root systems develop deeply, sometimes penetrating many meters, allowing for the exploitation of groundwater during the driest months. Forest fires are not a catastrophe here, but part of an ecological cycle. Many plant species have the ability to regenerate quickly after fire, temporarily taking advantage of the ash layer rich in minerals to grow. For animals, the Cerrado does not allow the existence of generalist strategies. The scarcity of nutrients in the soil means that food is dispersed and unstable over time. Species must develop a capacity for precise movement, continuous environmental recognition, and extremely efficient energy use. Successful organisms here are often highly specialized species, capable of exploiting resources that few other species can access, or flexible enough to change strategy seasonally. Every square meter of the Cerrado is a space of silent competition. Beneath the grass layer, social insects build complex underground networks. On the surface, predators and omnivores move along familiar routes, shaped by the terrain and vegetation. In the air, birds use thermal currents to connect distant feeding spots. Life is not distributed randomly, but is organized into clear strategies, which directly reflect the limitations imposed by the environment. In this journey, the Cerrado is not just a backdrop. It is the shaping force. Every life form bears the imprint of the poor soil, water scarcity, and severe seasonal rhythm. It is from this foundation that the Cerrado fauna is organized into distinct ecological roles, with each species being a different solution to the same problem of survival. Here, science names selection pressures, seasonal rhythm, and energy balance. And at a deeper level of human experience, many feel there is a pre-established meaning in that order. The two perspectives do not have to be opposed. One explains the mechanism, the other reminds us to live with humility before that mechanism. Amidst the open areas and hard soils of the core ecosystem, almost imperceptible trails lead to one of the largest terrestrial insect consumers in the Cerrado. An animal rarely seen from a distance, but which has a direct influence on soil balance. In the central areas of the Cerrado, where open fields are interspersed with patches of shrubs and consolidated soils, the giant anteater operates continuously and silently. With a total length of up to 2 meters and a weight that can exceed 40 kilograms, this terrestrial mammal moves across territories ranging from 4 to 12 square kilometers, adjusting its presence to food availability and terrain structure. The diet is highly specialized. Ants and termites account for more than 90% of daily intake, obtained from hundreds of nests exploited sequentially. Each approach lasts only a few seconds. Staying longer increases the risk of being attacked by insect defenses. The tongue is thin and extensible, exceeding 60 centimeters, and can be projected more than 150 times per minute, allowing for effective prey capture before internal tunnels collapse. The front claws, long and curved, act as digging tools, breaking the termite mounds hardened by compaction and heat. To protect these structures, the animal walks resting on the back of its paws, an adaptation that reduces wear and ensures effectiveness during years of continuous activity on the abrasive soil of the ecosystem. vision is limited. The sense of smell is highly developed, allowing for the detection of subterranean colonies several meters away, guiding the precise selection of the route and the time spent at each site. Energy conservation is crucial. Every movement must provide a measurable nutritional benefit to compensate for the physical effort. Reproduction occurs at long intervals. Gestation lasts about 190 days, yielding a single pup that is carried by the female on her back for months. This behavior reduces exposure to the hot ground and facilitates the gradual learning of foraging routes. Regions like the Serra da Canastra in Minas Gerais function as strategic refuges for this species within the Cerrado, combining extensive natural fields, a high availability of social insects, and terrain conducive to terrestrial movement. In the western Cerrado, where the terrain gently rises and dispersed rows of trees begin to surpass the open grass carpet, the ecological space expands vertically. Above the discontinuous canopy, sequential movements form invisible routes, connecting distant regions of the territory. In that aerial stratum, the blue and yellow macaw emerges as one of the dominant organisms, representing the control and connection of the aerial ecosystem. In the regions of the Cerrado, where tall trees are sparsely distributed and gallery forest fringes maintain permanent water resources, the blue and yellow macaw asserts its role as one of the most important vertebrates in the upper stratum. With a wingspan that can exceed 1.2 meters and a mass ranging from 900 grams to 1.3 kilograms, this bird is not confined to a small area. It utilizes vast territories, connecting open fields, dispersed forests and riparian corridors in daily journeys covering tens of kilometers. The diet of the blue and yellow macaw clearly reflects the survival strategy of a species that exploits dispersed but energy-rich resources. Hard seeds, fruits and small coconuts make up the majority of its ration, collected along familiar flight routes. Among the most important resources are native palm species like the buriti, along with fruit trees like the cashew, where fat and carbohydrate-rich fruits play a key role in maintaining energy for long flights. The large, curved and extremely robust beak is the central biological tool of the species. It generates enough force to break thick shells that are inaccessible to most other birds. This adaptation allows the macaw to exploit less competitive food sources, reducing the pressure of direct confrontation and expanding the spectrum of resources in a highly seasonal environment. The species' movement occurs through journeys that often exceed 20 kilometers in a single activity cycle. Flights maximize the use of thermal currents rising from the heated ground, allowing for energy savings over long distances. highly developed vision allows for the identification of fruit trees from great distances, guiding quick decisions during flight and optimizing the efficiency of foraging in an open space. Communication between individuals is constant and functional. Loud screeches not only maintain cohesion between pairs, but also help small groups stay in contact during movement across large areas. The lasting pair bond is an important characteristic of the species, which contributes to the stability of the reproductive strategy in a high-risk environment. Reproduction of the blue and yellow macaw strictly depends on the presence of natural hollows in large trees, often located in the less open zones of the Cerrado. The reproductive cycle is slow, with a reduced number of eggs and a prolonged care period. Both father and mother participate in rearing the young, protecting the nest, and providing food until the juvenile is strong enough to follow the adult's long migrations. This strategy prioritizes quality and long-term survival over rapid reproduction. In addition to its role as a fruit consumer, the blue and yellow macaw is an important seed dispersal agent in the CERRADO. A portion of the seeds is ingested and expelled intact at different points along flight paths or near resting areas. This process promotes vegetation regeneration in open areas and forest edges, connecting habitat patches through continuous biological flows. Regions like Western Goiás and northern Mato Grosso concentrate the optimal conditions for the species' existence, where abundant food supply, large trees suitable for nesting, and wide aerial routes coexist. In the ecological landscape of the CERRADO, the blue and yellow macaw is not just a sky organism. It is the connection link between the soil, woody vegetation, and aerial space, integrating different ecological strata into a unified operational system. Further down, away from the canopy and aerial space, the Cerrado reveals another dynamic. Between open fields and sandy soil, small rounded protrusions mark strategic points on the terrain. Above them, a discreet sentinel observes the surroundings from ground level. The burrowing owl. In the open fields of the Cerrado, where vegetation is low and the soil has a sandy or consolidated texture, the burrowing owl establishes an occupancy system directly related to the terrain. Unlike other raptors, this bird uses cavities in the ground as shelter, often taking advantage of previously dug holes or expanding shallow tunnels up to 2 meters in length, with an entrance diameter of approximately 23 to 28 centimeters and an average wingspan of 55 centimeters. The burrowing owl exhibits frequent diurnal activity behavior, which increases its visibility in the environment. Operating in daylight facilitates continuous monitoring of the environment, reducing risk and allowing for rapid response to changes in open space. The diet is diverse and opportunistic. Terrestrial insects constitute the majority of its diet, including beetles, grasshoppers, and scorpions, supplemented with small vertebrates when available. The foraging strategy is based on prolonged observation from elevated points near the burrow, followed by short and precise attacks. Efficiency depends directly on the wide visibility provided by the natural fields. Burrows fulfill multiple functions. In addition to thermal refuge, they are sites for egg-laying and protection. The entrance is often surrounded by organic debris and prey fragments, which helps reduce parasites and signals territorial occupation. Tunnel maintenance is continuous, ensuring adequate ventilation and drainage during rainy periods. Reproduction occurs in synchronization with greater food availability. The female remains inside the burrow during the initial period, while the male takes care of external guarding and food supply. Success depends on soil stability and the absence of flooding, determinant factors in site selection. In the CERRADO, the burrowing owl acts as a regulator of terrestrial invertebrate populations, directly influencing the balance of field areas. Its presence indicates structured fields with enough vegetative cover to sustain prey, but without obstructing the necessary vision for its hunting strategy. Further south of the territory, where forests are scarcer and vegetation reaches greater height, the CERRADO changes scale. Between tall fields and natural dense grass corridors, observation moves from aerial space to ground level. In this open environment, a canid with discrete habits uses its long legs to expand its field of vision and traverse large stretches of land. The maned wolf. In the most open parts of the CERRADO, where tall fields dominate the landscape and shrub vegetation allows for wide visibility, the maned wolf asserts itself as a solitary and discreet canid with a height of up to 90 centimeters at the shoulder and disproportionately long legs relative to the body. It uses this natural height to observe the surroundings over the dense tufts of grass, identifying potential resources and risks from afar. The body structure facilitates the exploration of vast areas. The slender body and long strides allow it to cover territories that can exceed 30 square kilometers, adjusted to the seasonal food supply. Movement is continuous and economical, reducing energy expenditure in the flat, undulating areas and open plateaus of the ecosystem. The diet is diverse and strategic. Small vertebrates, insects and fruits constitute the majority of its diet throughout the year. Among the plant elements, the wolf apple fruit stands out, consumed frequently. Seeds pass through the digestive tract and are deposited intact at different points in the territory, contributing to the natural regeneration of field areas and maintaining plant diversity. Communication occurs in a punctual and functional manner. In specific situations, the maned wolf emits deep, prolonged howls, audible over great distances, used to signal presence and deter potential threats. This mechanism reduces direct confrontations and maintains distance between individuals in areas of territorial overlap. The maned wolf predominantly occurs in the CERRADO, but also occupies the natural fields of the Pantanal and the Pampas in the higher regions, in addition to transitional areas with the Caatinga and the Atlantic forest. States like Minas Gerais, São Paulo, Paraná and the southern regions show consistent records. In addition to its ecological importance, the species occupies a symbolic place in Brazil. Its image is printed on the 200R note, officially representing the fauna of the CERRADO and reinforcing its direct connection to the natural fields of central Brazil. In the lowlands of the CERRADO, where the water level rises with the rainy season and slowly recedes as the dry season returns, the landscape begins to change. Tall grass, shallow swamps and water corridors create a semi-terrestrial space where movement requires strength, height and special adaptation. In that environment, the marsh deer emerges as a tailored life form for seasonally flooded areas. It is the largest deer in South America, with a height at the shoulder that can exceed 1.2 meters and a mass often ranging between 100 and 150 kilograms. The marsh deer has a tall but slender figure. Its long, strong legs raise the body above shallow water and soft mud, allowing it to move steadily through areas inaccessible to many other herbivores. Its wide hooves help distribute weight, limiting sinking in the humid soil, a crucial advantage in the seasonal flood regions of the CERRADO. The marsh deer's lifestyle is closely linked to water, but it is not entirely dependent on it. They prefer areas with low water levels, tall grass and soft vegetation, where food is abundant, but visibility is still wide enough to detect danger. The diet consists mainly of tender grasses, aquatic plants, and soft shoots from the swamp banks. This is a fiber-rich but stable food source, allowing for the maintenance of large body size in an environment that fluctuates sharply with the seasons. Activity usually takes place in the early morning and late afternoon, when the temperature is milder and high humidity helps reduce water loss. During the day, the marsh deer tends to remain still in tall grass or retreat to shallow flood areas to avoid the heat. The ability to stay in the water for a long time helps regulate body temperature and limit insects, while also creating a natural protective layer against some predators. Unlike deer species living in the jungle, the marsh deer relies heavily on open space and long-distance vision for defense. Developed vision and hearing allow for the detection of movement at great distances. When threatened, the reaction is not an abrupt change of direction, but a constant yet decisive movement, using its height and endurance to leave the danger area. Swimming is also an important skill, helping them cross water channels and wide swamps when necessary. The reproductive cycle is slow, suited to the rhythm of the seasonally flooded environment. The female usually gives birth to a single fawn, which hides in tall grass during the first weeks of life. This strategy reduces the chance of being detected during the most vulnerable phase, but also makes the population sensitive to prolonged environmental changes. The presence of the marsh deer shapes the Cerrado lowlands in a silent way. By selectively grazing, they maintain the low and open structure of the vegetation, preventing excessive shrub invasion. Their large size and stable movement habits make them one of the most important sources of biomass in the lowlands, an intermediate link between flooded vegetation and large predators. In the Cerrado, the marsh deer represents the transition from the tall dry fields to the seasonal shallow water areas, from the lifestyle of a pure herbivore to the adaptations of a semi-aquatic organism. It is at that boundary where water begins to dominate the rhythm of life and behavior that other forms of survival will continue. In the low regions of the Cerrado, where seasonal rivers, swamps, and riparian grass carpets create rare green fringes amidst the long dry season, a completely different life form emerges. With no need to hide in the shadow or rely on speed, the capybara presents itself openly and stably, firmly linking its existence to water. It is the largest rodent existing on Earth, a semi-aquatic organism that has perfectly adapted to the hydrological rhythm of Central South America. With a body length that can exceed 1.2 meters and a mass often ranging between 35 and over 60 kilograms, the capybara has a massive appearance, but moves slowly and conserves energy. Its barrel-shaped body, short legs, and webbed feet reflect a direct connection to the aquatic environment. Its thick skin and coarse fur help reduce heat loss when submerged, while also protecting it from insects and the searing sun of the Cerrado. Water is not just a refuge, but the center of its entire lifestyle. The capybara uses rivers, lakes, and swamps as safe spaces where it can fully submerge for several minutes when sensing a threat. Its eyes, ears, and nostrils are located on top of its head, allowing the capybara to observe the surroundings even when most of its body is submerged. When danger appears, its reaction is not a long-distance escape, but a brief retreat to the nearest body of water. The diet relies almost entirely on grass, aquatic plants, and tender shoots from the riverbanks. This is an energy-poor but always available food source. To maximize its utilization, the capybara has developed a specialized digestive system that allows it to process cellulose efficiently. It also performs the behavior of eating its own soft feces. Secotrophy, a biological strategy that helps reuse intestinal bacteria and fully exploit the nutritional value of the vegetation. Unlike many other large animals in the Cerrado, the capybara lives in well-defined groups. Groups often consist of a few individuals up to more than 2 dozen, concentrated around stable water sources. A dominant individual assumes the coordinator role, using olfactory signals and behavior to maintain order. This cohesion helps increase the ability to detect predators and reduces risk in an open environment. Activity primarily occurs in the early morning and late afternoon, when the temperature is milder and the riparian vegetation is rich in moisture. During the day, the capybara rests in the shade or submerges in the water to regulate body temperature. This rhythm of life reflects a constant balance between heat, food sources, and predation pressure. The reproductive cycle is closely linked to the rainy season, the time when vegetation grows most vigorously. Gestation lasts around 150 days, and each litter generally produces 2 to 8 young. The young develop quickly, beginning to forage early, but remaining protected within the group's safety area. The presence of the capybara shapes the Cerrado lowlands in a silent but persistent way. By controlled grazing, they maintain open spaces along the water. With its role as a vital food source for many large predators, the capybara becomes an intermediate link, transforming plant biomass into energy for the upper life strata. They are the bridge between terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, demonstrating that the Cerrado is not only formed by drought and fire, but also by water and its silent cycles. But the calm waters of the Cerrado never belong only to the capybara. Where there is tender grass, where there are familiar water accesses and riparian trails used repeatedly, there another gaze also silently remembers every movement. The capybara brings life to the lowlands, but that stable presence creates a predictable rhythm. Water accesses are used day after day, riparian grasslands are gradually grazed, and familiar pauses occur in the late afternoon. In the Cerrado, no behavior exists without leaving a trace. Hidden in the gallery forest corridors, where dense shade conceals the water surface and sound is absorbed by the thick vegetation, another predator monitors that entire cycle. With no need for open field pursuit, no need for direct confrontation. It waits at the boundary between land and water, where all advantage leans toward the one who knows how to be patient. The jaguar enters that picture not as an intrusion, but as an essential part of the order. In the Cerrado, riparian areas are not just refuges for prey, but also the perfect hunting territory for this great cat. Water conceals movement, vegetation dissolves shape, and the stable habits of the capybara create rare but decisive opportunities. When the sun sets and shadows begin to spread along the riverbanks, the slow pace of the lowlands changes to another state. Tranquility is no longer a sign of safety. It is the moment when the Cerrado remembers that all balance is maintained by a counterforce. And in this ecosystem, that counterforce has the shape of the jaguar. Along the gallery forest corridors of the CERRADO, where light is filtered by dense foliage and the water surface reflects vague movements, another force is present. Without boasting, without leaving superfluous sounds, the jaguar exists as part of the landscape, merging completely with the space it controls. It is the largest feline in the Americas and the top predator of the CERRADO, where strength resides not in speed, but in absolute precision. Compared to other large cats, the jaguar has a robust body, dense muscles, and a mass that can exceed 90 kilograms in adult individuals. The short, powerful body structure helps it generate the greatest bite force in the feline family. This is a decisive tool in the hunting strategy, allowing it to pierce the skull or bony shell of the prey in a single precise bite, ending the hunt before it truly begins. The CERRADO is not a dense jungle like the Amazon, and the jaguar adjusts its strategy accordingly. Instead of chasing prey in open space, it utilizes river edges, swamps, and tree corridors as natural access routes. There, dense vegetation hides movement, and water erases traces and sounds. The jaguar does not hunt with endurance. It hunts with patience, choosing the right moment when distance, attack angle, and the element of surprise reach perfection. The capybara, with its stable movement habits and reliance on familiar water accesses, becomes one of the key prey in the riparian hunting system. But the jaguar does not limit its choice. From large rodents, deer, armadillos, to fish and large reptiles, its diet reflects the flexibility of a dominant predator in an environment that fluctuates with the seasons. Water is not a barrier. On the contrary, the jaguar is an expert swimmer, willing to launch into the river to pursue or ambush prey from beneath the water surface. Activity occurs mainly at dusk and at night, when the temperature drops and the sounds of the CERRADO become quieter. During these periods, every movement is carefully calculated. Each individual maintains a vast territory marked with scent and claw marks, which limits direct conflict with other individuals. Territorial overlap rarely leads to confrontation, as energy is a resource that cannot be wasted. The jaguar's reproductive cycle is slow and discreet. The female chooses dense areas, far from disturbance, to give birth. The young are fed for many months, learning to move, hide, and hunt through observation and experience. Every lesson is vital, as the CERRADO does not forgive mistakes. The presence of the jaguar silently shapes the entire ecosystem. Large herbivores are forced to adjust their movement routes and activity times, avoiding high-risk areas. This predation pressure extends through many biological strata, affecting vegetation, riverbank structure, and the dynamics of seasonal wetland ecosystems. With no need to appear frequently, the jaguar still maintains order solely with its potential presence. In the Cerrado, the jaguar is not just a predator. It is the final boundary between ecological stability and chaos. When this species exists, the system operates with an invisible discipline. When it disappears, the relationships finely tuned over thousands of years begin to crack. Between land and water, between prey and predator, the jaguar maintains a central position, like a silent heartbeat of the Cerrado. Today, the jaguar is identified by biologists and international conservation organizations as a flagship species and an ecological indicator species for the forest and savanna ecosystems of South America, including the Cerrado. According to the scientific approach, the presence of the jaguar directly reflects the level of habitat integrity, especially the continuity of gallery forest corridors and the stability of the prey population. According to international conservation data compilations, the total number of jaguars currently existing in the wild is estimated to be around 173,000 individuals, with a continuous declining trend. The historical distribution range of this species has been reduced by more than 50% compared to before the 20th century, mainly due to habitat loss and landscape fragmentation. In the Cerrado, this situation is particularly evident. Ecological studies show that more than half of the original Cerrado area has been converted to agricultural and grazing land, breaking the biological corridors that the jaguar depends on for hunting, moving, and maintaining its territory. This fragmentation isolates jaguar populations, reducing genetic diversity and increasing the risk of long-term decline. In addition to habitat loss, the decline of natural prey species is also identified as a major factor. When populations of capybara, deer, and small ungulates decrease due to hunting and habitat alteration, the jaguar is forced to expand its hunting range and increase the frequency of approaching human-populated areas, which increases conflict and the risk of being eliminated by retaliation. According to current conservation assessments, the jaguar is classified as near threatened. This reflects the fact that, although the species is not on the brink of extinction, it is approaching critical criteria if the trend of habitat loss, wildfires, and prey decline continues. From an ecological perspective, the decline of the jaguar does not just mean the loss of a large cat. Many studies indicate that when jaguar density drops below a certain threshold, the biological control effect on the ecosystem weakens, leading to an uncontrolled increase in prey species, changes in vegetation structure, and degradation of riparian ecosystems. Therefore, the conservation of the jaguar is not only about protecting a symbolic species of South America, but also about protecting the central ecological structure and function of the Cerrado, where this species plays a core role in maintaining long-term biological stability. When the jaguar leaves the riverbank, the power of the terrestrial predator does not disappear. It simply transforms into another form, hidden beneath the murky water where the caiman waits. The caiman is a close relative of the crocodile, representing an evolutionary branch that has existed for over 80 million years, almost unchanged since the time of the dinosaurs. In the river systems, swamps and wetlands of South America, the caiman plays the role of a key predator in the interface space between land and water, where survival conflict occurs most frequently. Morphologically, the caiman is optimally designed for semi-aquatic life. Most adult individuals have a body length of 2 to 2.5 meters, and large individuals can reach nearly 3 meters. The body is elongated, and the laterally flattened tail takes up almost half of the total length, acting as the main engine when swimming, allowing for sudden acceleration in short ambush phases. Beneath the thick skin are dermal bony plates, osteoderms, overlapping like natural armor. This structure helps the caiman withstand impacts, protecting the body from prey, counterattacks, and attacks from other predators, including the jaguar. Precisely this tough skin made the caiman a hunting target for the leather industry. The caiman's head is wide, the jaw is short but extremely strong, generating a bite force estimated between 2,500 and 3,500 newtons. The conical teeth are not sharp like those of large cats, but they have the ability to grip and crush, allowing the caiman to deal with hard-shelled prey like turtles, or drag mammals into the water. The eyes and nostrils are located on the top of the skull, allowing them to observe and breathe while most of the body remains submerged. In the riparian food chain, the caiman is an opportunistic carnivore. Young caimans feed mainly on insects, invertebrates, and small fish. As they grow, their diet expands to include large fish, aquatic birds, turtles, rodents, and sometimes capybara young. Thanks to its low metabolic rate, an adult individual can fast for several weeks to several months, a major advantage in an environment with unevenly distributed food resources. Encounters between caimans and jaguars occur at riparian points, when both target prey or the water source. When the jaguar ventures too far into the water, the caiman can counterattack with a surprise assault from below. Conversely, in some rare cases, the jaguar uses its terrestrial agility to attack the back of the caiman's neck, aiming for the cracks between the bony plates. Most of these confrontations do not have an absolute winner. One retreats because both are predators that cannot afford the risk of serious injury. The caiman's reproduction clearly reflects the ancestral instinct of reptiles. The female builds a nest with decaying vegetation, and each nest typically contains 20 to 50 eggs. The heat generated by the decomposition process helps incubate the eggs, and the nest temperature determines the sex of the hatchlings. If the ambient temperature shifts a few degrees Celsius, the sex ratio can deviate significantly, making caiman populations particularly sensitive to climate change. In the aquatic ecosystem, the caiman plays an important regulatory role. They control fish, rodent, and aquatic bird populations, indirectly maintaining water quality and riparian vegetation. When caimans decline, ecologists record a clear imbalance in the food chain and habitat degradation. However, the biggest threat to the caiman today comes not from the jaguar or any natural predator, but from humans. In the 20th century, millions of caimans and related crocodiles were hunted for their skin for the leather industry, while their meat became a food source in many regions. Although many countries have enacted protection and trade control laws, conservation studies show that some caiman populations have still not fully recovered, especially in basins subjected to poaching pressure and habitat loss. In the world where land and water intersect, the caiman is a testament to evolutionary resilience spanning tens of millions of years. But in just a few decades, the human has become the factor capable of changing the destiny of this ancient predator species faster than any previous natural event. Across much of the Cerrado, from open fields to transitional areas with the Caatinga and the high zones of the Pantanal, the common caracara stands out for its behavioral flexibility. With a length of about 55 centimeters and a wingspan close to 1.2 meters, this bird of prey uses high points of the terrain, isolated trees, and the ground itself as platforms for continuous observation of the surroundings. Operational intelligence is one of its clearest characteristics. The caracara quickly adjusts its strategy to available resources. The diet is broad and includes insects, small vertebrates, carrion, and organic waste. This flexibility allows for stable occupation in environments with great spatial and temporal variation in food, reducing dependence on a single resource source. Known as an efficient consumer of organic matter, the caracara works to eliminate dead animals and natural debris from the environment. It also takes advantage of exposed prey after natural forest fires, when small animals are more visible on the ground. This activity contributes to the biological cleansing of the territory and directly influences the ecosystem's sanitary balance. Social behavior is opportunistic. In certain situations, the caracara follows the movement of large animals or interacts with other bird species to access available food. There are records of stealing prey directly from smaller species, indicating an active and adaptive strategy in resource acquisition. The call is loud and easily recognizable, including repetitive hoarse cries. This sound gave rise to the bird's popular name and is primarily used for long-distance communication and to signal territorial presence, reducing direct conflict and organizing spatial occupation. Another functional aspect is the change in color of the bare skin near the beak. In situations of stress or alert, that area tends to have a yellow hue, while the orange color indicates a more stable physiological state. This visual indicator provides instant information about the individual's condition. The caracara also establishes indirect interactions with other organisms. In some contexts, it removes external parasites from large mammals, such as ticks, operating in a beneficial manner. Despite its appearance and behavior, it does not belong to the falcon group, but is more closely related to caracaras in phylogenetic terms. With extremely keen vision, the caracara maintains continuous vigilance over vast areas of the CERRADO, connecting open areas, ecosystem edges, and transition zones through a highly adaptable strategy. The Cerrado of Brazil is not just a vast tropical savanna, but one of the ecosystems with the highest biological value on Earth. Scientific compilations show that the Cerrado occupies approximately 20% of the Brazilian territory, but harbors about 5% of the total living species described on the planet, including more than 12,000 plant species, of which about 40% are endemic. This ecosystem is maintained by a delicate balance between nutrient-poor soils, a natural fire regime, drought-adapted vegetation, and a network of animals with an extremely efficient energy use capacity. Every animal species in the Cerrado, from top predators to small subterranean species, reflects how life exists through energy optimization, territorial division, and seasonal behavioral adaptation. No biological process occurs in isolation. Every interaction is linked to specific ecological pressures. However, research data from several decades show that the Cerrado is suffering a strong impact from human activities. It is estimated that more than 50% of the original Cerrado area has been converted to agricultural and grazing land. This decline in habitat has led to a significant reduction in many animal populations. Some studies document that populations of characteristic large mammals of the Cerrado have decreased by 30 to 60% in recent decades, mainly due to habitat loss and fragmentation. Climate change exacerbates this trend. Regional climate models project that the Cerrado will experience a longer dry season, an average temperature increase of about 2 to 4 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century, along with an increase in the frequency of high-intensity droughts and wildfires. These changes directly affect reproductive cycles, food sources, and the movement capacity of many animal species, especially those dependent on transitional environments between forests and savannas. The Cerrado also plays a crucial role in the climate and hydrological systems of South America. The deep root layers of the Cerrado vegetation help store large amounts of carbon in the soil, while also maintaining water supply for some of the region's largest river basins. When vegetation is destroyed, the carbon storage capacity decreases, contributing to increased greenhouse gas emissions and weakening the region's climate regulation capacity. From a scientific perspective, the Cerrado is seen as a large-scale natural laboratory where researchers can directly observe how the ecosystem reacts to the simultaneous pressure of land use and climate change. The changes happening here are not only important for Brazil, but also provide vital data to better understand the adaptation capacity and tolerance limits of ecosystems worldwide. Understanding the Cerrado is not just understanding a specific biome, but recognizing how complex ecological systems operate, weaken, and can recover if properly managed. Therefore, the conservation of the Cerrado is not just about local significance, but is part of a global effort to maintain biodiversity, stabilize the climate, and protect essential ecosystem services for humanity. Thank you for accompanying us until the end of this journey. And if what you have just seen has given you a sense of the scientific value and depth of the natural world, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell, because your support is the motivation for us to continue pursuing research-based, precise, and responsible journeys to discover and share the most important ecosystems on Earth, and we hope to accompany you on the next explorations.